One of my favorites, there's a young kind of child figure that's small, and then a larger, clearly a mother figure, very abstract. And the mother is handing the child a piece of the sun.
This is called the gift. And right here, this right here is, this person here is taking a piece of the world and hand it to the children of the world right here.
And it has an environmental theme to it. They're like almost jumping out of the air, and the shape of the figures just give it a kind of energy and buoyancy that's really magical to be able to do from steel.
You know, my favorite piece, I keep teasing him, and I even said to Monica, I said, look, I just want Magic Johnson's hands. I don't care. I need Magic Johnson's hands.
Alvin actually photographed him making a shot and then made, were they bronze?
Bronze.
Bronze castings of his hands. And I think he made 12 or 13 and then smashed the mold. And if I remember right, didn't one get given and auctioned off for HIV?
Yes, one went to an AIDS auction.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, it's like, okay. And the piece that Russ wants, heaven only knows why, is a moose with neon antlers.
No. Not a moose.
What is it?
It's neon antlers, and everybody says to make neon glow, it has to be continuous. Well, Alvin figured out he actually made a set of deer antlers that weren't connected, but with light, because he calculated and figured out what he needed for the spacing to actually allow it,
To
the
jump.
gas to get excited and light without being connected.
This one here. Indigenous inhabitants, okay?
He could take a piece of anything and literally turn it into art. And I think I like that most because that's true creativity, and it also shows you that the mind that could see beauty in something, a piece of metal, a flat piece of wood, to me, that is the true artist.
I think he was born creative. I think he's a genius, and I think he was born that way. I think he's 75, and it's, you know, we're always a little unsure of how old he is. He was born at home with a midwife in LaGrange, Georgia, in a really segregated town. You know, that would stop many people, but I think he had a really strong family, a loving, supportive family.
When you're born in a family of 14, then you're involved. You can't help it. You're always involved. We were poor, but the biggest thing, we didn't know we were poor. We really didn't understand that we were poor because we had a mother and dad, a family. He would be number 5 coming down. Well, it was 2 brothers, Alvin and Edward, and we called one Big Brother and the other one Little Brother. Alvin was Little Brother. They were both people that I looked up to and just had fond memories of the time of Alvin's early life when he was in high school. And, you know, the older people would say, this boy gonna do something good with his life. He going away and be somebody. He was first colored lifeguard. And back then, there was, you know, we had 2 pools. We had a black pool, swimming pool, and a white swimming pool. You know, everything was segregated then. You had to excel in your community if you wanted to do anything. Before then, we were swimming in the creek. So Alvin sort of set the stage for us all leaving home, doing something with our lives, or trying to do something with our lives, certainly trying to make a difference. And that was the first person to really make a difference in the kids.
You know, there were lots of obstacles put before my father, probably all of his life, but he really I don't know. I think he enjoys a challenge. I've never ever seen him all of his life be stopped by an obstacle. You know, you can plop a boulder in front of him and he's going to go right through it. And he'll find a way to make it through that.
If you stayed in a situation where there are separate schools, you stayed in a situation where there are segregation, as it was at the time, your limit to really grow and develop is just a limit to it. But if you would take the first opportunity, in this case, the first circus out of town, the first train out of town, you can be able to grow and develop.
I guess his first professional job was when he ran away from home with the circus to do sketches just before his graduation. My father started out sketching, and then he started doing oil painting.
The first big oil painting that I'd seen him paint was a picture of my mom. My mom died early, so we had some small photos of her. And he said, well, I could paint that picture. So I says, okay. When he finished the painting, we took it out to my grandma's house and let her see it. It brought her whole life back into the family. And it was so much crying, like they seen her all over again, you know, because it was such an expression to see that picture. You know, it was a big expression there. Alvin went into the Air Force. A year after that, we got engaged. And so we was engaged and we got married in 1957. During the time he was in OSA, he created a grenade for the Air Force. During that time, he never gave up on his art. And he sketched pictures for all the Air Force guys. We lived in Rome, New York. That was Griffiths Air Force Base. That's where the kids were born, and we lived there on base. We also had a studio. Every time he got a chance, he was doing his artwork. Well, he sketched black and whites and pastels. I think he painted just about everybody in Rome, New York. After one seen the picture, they wanted one. That's when he built the tall statue of Christ. He built that. A picture of that was in the Ebony magazine. He was already into welding. He got into sign making because that was like a job for him. He had about 20 people working under him. Was the electrical sign.
In 1976, I was an assistant in the president's office, and we encountered a new student on campus. We noticed that the work-study budget suddenly went out of whack, and we found that the dean of administration had discovered this student who knew how to make signs and had assigned him to repair all the signs on campus and redesign them. And that's how we discovered Alvin. We found that it became obvious that he could do more than make signs. And so the president assigned him to more and more responsibilities, and before long, he was a full-time employee, before he graduated.
My father was a student at American International College. He was studying political science, and you know, that came after the sign company failed. He was just not making enough money. He was probably giving away more than he was bringing in. And then he saw that something needed beautification, and he said to the president, I think he went into the president's office and said, I could do this better for you.
He was assistant to the president for campus design. He was artist in residence, and he was director of the Cultural Arts Center. He made the campus a very different place than it was before he came. The changes were significant. The library addition was built across a city street. It involved moving houses, and we moved them into the neighborhood. The Cultural Arts Center was built around the dining commons and had two fronts. The Campus Center addition again was built across the city street. It had to, we had to do all the technical things that were required to move it around the city street, and it expanded our student center dramatically. And that's been very important for us. The Health Science Complex, again, fitted into a corner. It incorporated an old bakery, which we cut the front off, and we built a human anatomy lab in the back. These were creative structures. These were not conventional structures. They were creative, and Alvin's hand was very much in that. We were pretty straightforward, simple before that, and those are the buildings that we point to now as our key facilities.
I can't believe how many nights he didn't sleep, just get a couple of hours just to keep building that building. I'm proud to have my name on it.
When we built the Cultural Arts Center, part of the deal was that he would become artist in residence.
When he went to AIC, they didn't even have an art studio. He created that. He started putting on shows there, and he made that big sculpture that's outside of AIC.
It was a building, it was going to be torn down, and he said, these columns are beautiful, it's a work of art, you can't destroy that, and we can use these things, it's a work of art.
He could restore anything, like that statue over there he got from, I don't know where from, but it sits on our grounds. The students all use it as a postage stamp for them to show any pictures.
We hauled it to the college, and then we did work out of it. It was the best time of my life.
He would see an old gate somewhere and find out if is this being used, and send somebody to pick it up or go and rip it out himself. And he put them together and ended up making a really beautiful gate at American International College.
He was doing artistic renovation, building renovation, running an art gallery, running an art center, and that's where the paycheck came from. And it would be after hours. He would come home and sleep for 2 hours and then go to the studio from 10 until 4 in the morning and come back for coffee before he was going to his day job. So he always, it's as if, I know a lot of people today do 2 or 3 shifts and that type of thing, but Alvin always had a shift to do his art and would find a way to fit it in, even though he had a million other demands.
To try and keep up with that man would tire me.
Never stopped. His days were 24-hour days.
Like a clock.
Like a clock.
Turn like 24 hours, okay? He was as busy as me.
This is my definition of genius in the world, people who don't sleep. And Alvin has always slept at the most 3 or 4 hours a night.
He would read a lot, he'd listen a lot, and he never slept, and that is, I think he spends most of his time awake and trying to learn something.
Alvin sacrificed a lot of his art for this college. The college would come first. If he had a chance to go somewhere and administration here felt they needed Alvin, he would cancel trips.
Well, the school, AIC was founded in 1885, and we are very student-oriented. Alvin's a perfect fit for that because his spirit pervaded, every corner of the campus. He touched a lot of students.
All the kids knew him. We'd walk around this campus, and Alvin would seem to know, he would speak to all of them and seem to know most of their names.
He was our representative to the neighborhood community councils, and he was a major figure downtown in the in the arts program in the city of Springfield.
And Alvin was a big picture guy, and he still is a big picture guy. Everything, he could envision things that people couldn't see. We do a project here in Springfield called Bright Nights. We've always had a small staff. As you can see, the Spirit of Springfield has 3 full-time people, and we do these major events. So we did need the support. We needed that motivational support and helpfulness if we had a question. That was the kind of thing that I knew Alvin would always be at the other end of the phone if I needed something.
Having him here meant that our arts were visible and available to not just to AIC students, but the community at large.
He would want everyone to come to him, use his facility. It was like Alvin Paige's house.
The school across the street, Homer Street School, which I'm very involved with, has all of their, through Alvin, all of their plays, because they don't have an auditorium, their plays, their graduations, their special ceremonies are here. Anytime there's an art show, we have the children come over and see it and view it.
What's that thing sticking out right there?
This is a trumpet player, Dizzy Gillespie. Have you heard of him?
That's the background of that piece sitting on the seat.
And the rest of it is just kind of a background of different colors to give you a different mood of maybe what the music is like.
Alvin Paige likes explaining art to young people. He's the director of visual and performing arts at American International College and helped coordinate this exhibit of black artists at Homer Street School.
And I think it's very important that we do those kind of things to give our young people the kind of exposure to the arts.
He loved explaining, loved showing the beauty of art and how important it is to everyone's life.
Book's heavy, okay, but feel it, talk with it, walk with it, do everything. You can't draw an apple until you eat one, so I think you need to play with the book, you study it every day, and you have a funny feeling about books because this is work. Every time you open a book, oh God, I gotta do it again, okay? Think about it a different kind of way, okay? And I think you can refine your design and something good will come out of it.
When our school started doing fundraisers and needed larger, something that was going to generate some income, I came knocking on Alvin's door. I need art. Well, what do you want? Well, what do you got? We went down into the storeroom and we, rummaged through.
He was just always gave of himself and never asked people to give back to him. He was just happy and contented at helping others.
As being a mom, a grandparent, and a great-grandparent, I just found that his concentration in terms of he saw children was just amazing. It's probably because he had his own, and he had his own grandchildren, But I think he was also the type of person that would reach beyond his door. Like in the community, he would meet with, the mayor knew him, he would meet with all different political figures.
He was a very practical person for us. He was part of our administrative team. He was working on campus, but he was also an artist, and he also had impact around the world. I mean, Alvin was in China, he was in Ireland, he was in South Africa, he was down in the Caribbean, he was in Holland, he was everywhere, and he was making an impact. Then he'd bring the contacts back as artist in residence. He would have art shows, and we would have receptions for dignitaries from around the world.
Alvin gave my husband a chance to show in AIC. That was a big event for him, for my husband. So I really feel, what to say,
There wasn't a month that there wasn't some exhibit going on. And it wasn't just, it was local, but it was exhibits from all over the country and the world. So it just made you walk in and you could look around and say, okay, where's this from? And you'd have to read where it's from. His own exhibits were astounding. And what I liked about him, he was so knowledgeable about what was presented. And Alvin brought more than just the art, the sculpture, the pictures. It was the history that he was so involved in, knowing his own history and his own roots and how it affected people's lives.
Early 1900s.
And people can receive that, I think, quicker than they can opening up a book.
He often employed international students in his area. They were more attuned to his kind of work schedule.
I have artists from Jerusalem. I have artists that came from Israel. I have artists that came from Palestine. I have artists that came from Egypt. I have artists that came from People's Republic of China. Most of the artists is from the People's Republic of China. And that's how I got a hold to Lucy.
And one day I went to my college, I saw a big poster. That was Alvin with his welding gun.
Yeah.
I thought, oh my God, this is really an artist.
Yeah.
You don't know what I'm talking about. And then I'll try to make a picture or whatever. And then you can't describe frescoes to somebody that don't know what they're talking about.
We had scheduled a couple of days off while we were in Beijing to do tourists, thinking probably that we were going to visit the wall and some of the standard tourist sites. We never did any of that. We just, Tiananmen, the early demonstrations were going on, and we just hooked right into it because it was so exciting. Some of the sketching he did while we were there, and some of the sketches he did from photographs after we got back. So it's a mix.
He was eager to talk to those students, and they were pretty much camped out there in Tiananmen Square, and I just kind of saw it as we should be silent observers, but he really injected himself in, and they were really happy to have him there as an African American. They had so many questions for him. You could see that he really wanted the best for those students.
And that summer, Alvin was funded to do a large installation right down in Boston in the City Hall Plaza, which is this enormous brick open plaza.
I knew that I came out of the China experience with a void, and knowing that I had to do something about it and about the way it left me. How to tell a story of 1.5 million people rallying for a special kind of democracy and freedom that they want, not ours, but the kind that they're looking for. I decided to maybe recreate Tiananmen Square in Government Center Plaza. Having something very clean in line that would speak very bold, but in a soft tone, sitting in the middle of Government Center, and that you could see from anywhere approaching it, was the item to do. The envelope of space that surrounds the piece of art is important as the piece of art itself, because it has to be perceived in that context of that environment. I had thought about writing on it, doing something like graffiti. I thought about putting images on it, but that doesn't pull together how I feel about China and about the people that I have met over there. I think I want a more subtle way of doing it. So I thought I'd take a red headband and put it around the top of it, the same as they all wore over there during the demonstration. The message would be what? I wasn't sure. And the message came from a T-shirt that my daughter wore in China, and it says, "You gotta have faith."
What happened in China is not just Chinese. What happened in China has, is relevant to the whole mankind. So it doesn't matter whether it's Chinese face or or anything. It doesn't matter. It's about all human beings.
The Bank of New England called and said, "We shall support this issue because we believe in what you're saying." I can't change yesterday. I can help change tomorrow. I think that's what this piece is about. You can't sell an installation. That somehow you have to put it there, people have to enjoy it, and then it goes away. So you have to have some kind of monetary backing to do that. So in my head and in small models, I've done installation. That's what I really like to do. I like to involve myself with nature and people and the environment and all of that kind of thing. But nothing has to last forever. Everything that I know that's wonderful and beautiful only lives for a short time. I think you must be able to catch it in its moment of beauty, in its conception, and its growth, and the duration of the time that it's there. Essentially, that's what public art and installations are to me. I don't think I have the right to spill blood on Government Center. I think I can spill hope on Government Center, and that's what I want to do.
He was a man of the times, very concerned with what was going on, poverty. He showed that explicitly in some of his pictures or the arts that he would bring into the school. Any issue that was going on, death, dying, children, no facet of life that I can think of that he did not bring out through the arts.
Remember for the Children of Sorrow exhibit at the Quadrangle in Springfield, Massachusetts, they were very concerned about the safety of the exhibit and if, you know, it would be vandalized. And my father befriended a number of homeless people who are unfortunately living at the Quadrangle in the evening. They would spend their day walking around and then assemble at the Quadrangle in the evening to sleep there. And, you know, he felt that was a shame. And so he talked to these people and said, you know, I want you to watch it. And actually, he made it so they volunteered to watch it.
Alvin has always been one of the more, not just creative in designing his pieces of art, but creative in getting the, particularly for these big installations, getting the funding and getting the assistance to actually make them happen. Because these are like $20,000, $30,000 things that you have to get put together. When he did the Quonset hut thing in Springfield, they airlifted the Quonset hut into Springfield.
Into Springfield.
One of his buddies from the National Reserve actually got some of the National Reserve guys on their weekend when they were. This was one of their projects that they worked on, was helping get this Quonset hut in and assembled.
It's a half a circle, so I envisioned the other half of the circle under the ground. And this circle is part of the spirit of life. It has, across the board, appeared in every religious or ethnic ceremony from the beginning of time. Most recently, American Indians in Ireland and Scotland, there are the megalithic tombs in Dolmen, Stonehenge, and Newgrange. It's this mysterious crucible that holds the spirit together. And that together we can solve these problems. We've done it many times in this world. We pulled together a whole bunch of people in a project called the Manhattan Project, and we had a task that we didn't think we could ever do in a short period of time. We created the most destructive force in the whole world with scientists from everywhere else, without the politics and everything else. If we can do that, we can pull together enough people in this society and working together and save children.
Nobody had hit that issue head on, children facing these kinds of issues. And, you know, the sheer size of it, the number of people that got involved in it, just, and the media coverage was extraordinary because it hit a nerve and everyone wanted to be a part of it. And so I can't really say it just made an impact, you know, and I think it was a positive and negative impact because people saw themselves for what we are, and but it was important for Alvin for people to see that, and maybe by seeing it, do something that's going to help rectify the situation.
Art can transform people's lives, but you need to know its connection to human life.
In view of all of the things that are happening in the world, there is one area in which we can come together to promote world peace, and that's through the arts.
He'd been to the March on Washington, the famous one where there was Martin Luther King there. He likes to, you know, to support someone who he thinks is standing up for something that he believes in.
The program has all of the earmarks of being the thing that will promote a dialogue in this country that could lead to ending racism as we know it forever.
And people were always engaged because he could talk about situations that he actually was a part of. Not just saying I didn't just paint it, I walked that walk, or I didn't just talk it, I walked it. So when you put that package together, you have a phenomenal human being, and he will be forever remembered.
Public art has always been around for hundreds of years, but public art was always statuary. It was a general on a horse with a saber in his hand. It wasn't until the late 60s when we started doing public art like giant clothespins and baseball bats in Chicago that the public started saying, hold it, I don't want my tax money to pay for that kind of thing. I think that public art, if it's well designed, if it brings the public attention, it makes a place for them to go. It enhances the corridor where they walk or work or play, or it makes a political or social statement, then public art is good. Look inside, but what will you find? But to make public art work, I think that you have to involve a segment of the public at the onset.
He can walk into a situation and be received. And handle difficult situations or getting the word out about a very tough situation in the city or in the country, and do it in a way that people would accept it, because you can't just throw things at people and want them to change by just saying you have to do this and this is the right thing to do, but there's a way of engaging people, and art is a phenomenal way to do it.
My father has a piece that runs through all of his pieces, the most recent, not the early sketches and paintings, but there's a face. And, it's just a face, and there are no eyes, there's a nose and a mouth and a chin. And so that in that way, it can be any man. And, they've been many different shades. It's biodegradable. And it's carried through his most recent work. And I do think it's very political, and I think he said a lot with these faces.
Because they were a fragment, it deliberately left a lot to the imagination. It was like unfinished humanity.
It was left to the viewer's imagination to finish it.
Where there's stillness, the grass is growth in it, so it makes them lifelike and humanistic. And I was noticing the circle of fire seemed like a campfire or a pagan ritual fire, where you can dance over it kind of thing and dance around it. And, I was just wondering what your ideas were when you were making it.
I think my idea is that I tried to create something that would challenge the viewer and put enough of things that were meaningful and spiritual and part of the earth. I say to them, here, think about this. Get in touch with yourself, in touch with your neighbors, in touch with who you are, and think about nature as it is, think about people as it is, think about creation as it is. As well as the piece that we did on the ocean in Newport, like 200 faces from here, like cast clay faces, and we put them on the beach in Newport, and the ocean washed up and washed them all out to sea. And there was a monolith out of glass sitting in the sand there, and the monolith had a T.S. Eliot quote that said, "At the end of our journey, we arrived where we began and know the place for the first time."
I think different people interpret it differently. He studied the human anatomy and made these figures. They're plywood, and then with styrofoam, and then with sod on top of them. And yet, with all of that, when they're finished, they have a real human figure to them and have the flow of a human movement.
We'll place it here where the people walk through, because we would like the piece of art to interact with the public as they walk through the installation site. One of the things that I really just would like to add is that how the name Flatlanders came about. About 2 years ago, I was asked to be the chosen artist for the state of Vermont for 1 year. And within that, they asked me to do anything that I wanted to. I chose a site in Manchester, Vermont, a 200-acre site at the base of Mount Equinox. Vermont is, as you know, is nothing but mountains. And they farmed it until they found flat land out here in the west that all the farmers moved to and started growing corn and left Vermont hills.
Well, the people that were left there, everyone that lives and come to Vermont now, it is a vacation resort. It's full of ski areas. I have a small place in Vermont where I ski, and I've been skiing there for 8 years, and they have, everyone that comes from Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, anywhere else are called flatlanders. They're people not from Vermont. Well, just recently I was accepted as a Vermonter and not a flatlander.
All of his life, people have talked to him about, you know, black art, and he said, it's obvious that I'm African American, that I'm Black American or Afro American, but that's obvious. But I am an American, and I won't have my art just, you know, reduced to one thing that I am, because I'm a man, I'm American, you know, I have Irish ancestry, I'm from rural Georgia. There's so many parts to my life that I just won't have my art reduced to one thing. That's very important to me, obviously, and it's made me who I am today. But I do think he is very proud to be a role model for African Americans and for all people. You know, it's important to him.
It broke a barrier there for the first time, where you have a noted African American coming back to a community that has been racially divided over the years. The blacks on one side of the track, whites on the other, to come back to do the show. And at that time, it was the largest show that has ever been to the Art Association in LaGrange. I guess it was probably the proudest hour of our family. I know of, I can remember, you know, being there and sort of helping to greet people. And I saw people who have never, ever attended an art show of any kind in their life walk through that line to view this art. So it was a work, it was really something to see.
There's no area in life that his art can't touch. No problem that in life that could not be demonstrated. No sense of self, and I think that's another big piece. Pride, a sense of self-empowerment. I think that's what his art does, because when you see it, you know it's time to stand up and be proud of yourself. And if not just you, your next door neighbor, or in another country, in another totally different environment than your own, but a sense of beauty, and in that beauty there's pride, and that kind of a pride will surpass anything in life that you could possibly attain.
He has this indomitable spirit that just takes you along. As I said, the Pied Piper. Alvin wanted to go there, you wanted to follow him, because he was doing the right thing and for the right reasons, never for Alvin, you know.
I think he felt that if he did a nice piece of art, and a lot of his art I didn't understand, you know, but then that's me. If somebody got some enjoyment out of it, he was happy.
Alvin and Susan sponsored me to come to the U.S. in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
Without Alvin and Susan, we don't have a life of today.
And those that know Alvin love Alvin. I mean, he's very outgoing and personable, and he's infectious to be around.
Alvin is a great guy. He has a twinkle in his eye and a beautiful smile. And every time he saw me, he'd always run up and give me a big hug and a kiss. And it didn't make any difference if it was on the main street or at a party or something else. He always came and greeted me.
My father was recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. He said to me since the diagnosis, you know, I want to remember what I've done. And it's really interesting because with an artist, you create something and you leave it there for people to remember you, whether you're standing there with them or they come and look at your painting or your sculpture years, 100 years later.
And life is a work of art. It's an expression of who you are, your character, your background, this kind of thing. And I think that's what all this is about.
Alvin was an international figure. You know, we knew him as a friend, but he was a lot more than that.
We have this man on 1000 State Street in Springfield, Massachusetts, who is world renowned.
When he says, I'm an artist, even today, he knows that he is. And I think that's his biggest achievement. And not only does he know it, but other people know it and they believe it and he can show them that he's an artist. And I think that's his biggest achievement.
All the things that I got to do, that I want to do, that I'm going to do, is still in my head. And I'm not going to let it go.
No, you're not finished yet. You're not finished. We know that.
This is like the one that's in my studio there. This is there. I used to make my own neon.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And you made this one?
Yeah, I made this one right here. Right there. It's called The Bitch That Boy is Still Alive. And this is like, this is $100 bills in this thing right here. That's what that's in there. And what else? And this was made, let me see. I look like I keep thinking this is a real person there. Let me get around the other side. These right here were made about biodegradable soybean fiber, okay? And then you can take theirs, and and I carry these with me everywhere I go. See this right here? It's hard to do this because you got to pull this up and take this out. It says you got to have faith, and that's that neon ring right there. See it right there? Okay. It says you got to have faith. Okay. And what else? Okay.
What does it mean to you and I guess our family that Alvin became a world-renowned artist?
Well, he went from little bro to big bro. so it has been to me. I say that jokingly, but it's important, you know, that